guys, this is Naz. Today I'm going to show you how to make a macrame plant hanger. The first thing that you need for this project is a macrame cord. This can be just about any kind of cord, twine, or rope made out of cotton, hemp, jute, or synthetic material. It comes in different sizes, colors, and twists. Next, you need some sort of support to tie your knots to. Popular choices include dowel rods, branches, hoops, or rings. Use a dowel rod for this one. And finally, you need a pair of scissors. The first knot you'll need to learn is the lark's head knot. This knot is what gets your macrame cord attached to your dowel rod. Find the ends of your first cord. Fold your cord in half and place the loop over the dowel rod. Bring the loop around the back and pull your two cord ends through the loop to tighten. After you're done attaching all your 8 cords to your macrame dowel, you can start with your first set of knots that are square knots. The square knots are the most basic macrame knots that you can learn, and they come in handy. You need a group of 4 cords for this knot. First, you need to know a few basic terms: filler cords and working cords. Working cords are a set of cords that you use to make the actual knots. The first and the last cords are the working cords. We'll call them working cord 1 and working cord 4. And the filler cords are a set of cords that your knots wrap around them. The middle cords are the filler cords, and we'll number them 2 and 3. The square knots can be created as left-facing or right-facing. If you start making your knot with your working cord number 1, your knot will be left-facing and will have a vertical bump on the left side of it. And if you start your square knot with your working cord number 4, it will be right-facing and will have a vertical bump on the right side of it. It doesn't matter which you choose to make, but keep in mind that whatever cord that you start your knot with needs to stay the same. And now let's start to make our first square knot. Take the first cord, working cord number 1, and move it to the right over the middle filler cords, filler number 2 and 3, and over the last cord, working cord number 4. Now bring the working cord number 4 on top and take it all the way to the back. Keep holding all the other 3 cords in your hand and then pull the cord number 4, the working cord number 4, through the loop that you created with cord number 1. You see, I'm pulling it through the loop, and then I pull only the working cords and keep the filler ones straight while tightening with my 2 working cords. Once I pulled all the way to the top, my half square knot is complete. Now it's time to alternate the cords. I started with the cord number 1, and now I'm starting with the cord number 4, which is my working cord. I bring it all the way to the top, over the filler and over the working number 1, and bring the working number 1 to the top while I'm holding all the other 3 cords, taking the cord number 4 all the way to the back, and then pull it through the loop that I just created. while holding the other ones, and now I'm keeping the filler ones still and pulling the other two working cords. I keep doing the same thing for the other ones. I pick 4 cords and I make a square knot with each 4, the same way that I did for the other ones. And because I picked to do a left facing square knot, I keep doing the same thing for the other knots, meaning that I start with my left working cord and then alternate it with the right working cord. I make 4 square knots and I'll be back. You can see that little bump that is created on the left side, showing that my square knot is a left facing knot, and it's great for keeping track of the cord that you started to make the knot with. Now it's time to connect the rows together. I pick my first square knot and my second square knot, and as we talked before, we need 4 cords to form a square knot. So I pick, for the filler cords, I pick the cord number 4 from my first square knot and the cord number 5 from my second square knot. And for the working cords, I pick the one right next to my filler cords, one from the first square knot and one from the other square knot. And I start making the same square knot that I did for the first row, meaning that I have 2 filler cords. I bring, because all of my knots are left facing knots, I start with my left working cord. I bring it to the top. I bring the right working cord to the top and then through the loop and pull the cords while keeping the filler cords straight. I had 4 square knots in the first row, so for the second row, I make 1 square knot with 2 of them and 1 square knot with the other 2, and then I wanna connect the first column to the second column. So now I'm going to make a square knot that can connect these 2 columns together. So I pick 2 filler cords as usual, one from each column. So the most outer cords of each column will be my 2 filler cords, and then the cord next to it will be my working cords. So I pick 4 and I form another square knot to connect these 2 together. And I make sure that all of my square knots are in the same row. As you can see, 4, and now I have 3. If you look at the anchors, I have 3 anchors that kind of form like a circle. So I need the 4th one to make a full circle. So for making the 4th one, I pick these 2 as my filler and then the cord right next to it as my worker, so I can form a full circle. I do the same left facing knot, but I don't pull it all the way to the top because I want to keep that nice shape. If I pull it all the way to the top, then I will choke the circle that can be formed loosely. So while I'm making sure that all my knots are on the same row, I make sure that I don't destroy the shape that I'm making with them. So as you can see on the picture, I have 4 on the first row, 3 on the second row, another 4 square knots on the third row. Now I'm making another 3. I make sure that I like the shape of all of my knots. If they're looking wonky or if they're standing funny, I will form them, sculpt them with my hand. And for my last row, I make only 2 because I'm after a triangular kind of a shape. Keep in mind that this is a pattern that I came up with. You can do it in a number of ways. You can make like rows of square knots one after another. I'm only adding knots or losing one because I want to form a shape. If you are after just a block of square knots, if you want to change the pattern, it's totally fine. This practice is for you to learn how to form a desired shape with adding more knots or losing some knots. Another basic knot that is super practical in macrame work is double half hitch knot or a half hitch knot. This knot is pretty simple, but it forms lines that can go vertically, horizontally, or diagonally in your work. In this pattern, I'm going to use it diagonally. Making it is pretty easy. Your first cord, which is your most outer cord, is your filler cord that really doesn't do anything. The other cords are wrapping around it. So you take your left cord, which is your filler cord, and hold it diagonally across the other cords, and then take the same working cord to the right of the first knot and take it up, over, and through the loop. And while holding your filler cord, you pull the working cord. That's really important. That's the key to make a good looking half hitch knot, to keep holding your filler and only pull your working. And so you do the same for making a double half hitch knot. This can be as it is as a half hitch knot, but for this pattern we are making a double half hitch knot. So I do the same thing again with the same working cord. So twice I bring it up, over, and through the loop. So once it's done, you should have 2 knots sitting next to each other, and the cord should be coming off in the middle. And they kind of look like a bead. You kind of feel like you're threading a bunch of. So the next one will be the next working cord right next to this one, looping around the same filler cord. So the filler cord will stay the same till the end, and I'm only taking working cords right next to it to loop around it. So for this pattern, I want to form 2 diagonal lines in a symmetrical way. That's why my first row of half hitch knots will be only till the middle part of my work. I have 16 cords, so I only wrap 8 of them around my first filler one. And then I stop once I reach to the cord number 8. So I reach to the middle part, I formed a line, a diagonal line. You can mark your middle part of the work, but since this is a smaller work, it's not super hard to see it once you reach to it. So my next row will be the exact same thing. I pick my most outer cord as my filler cord, and then I wrap the other cords around it twice. And I continue until I reach to the middle part. Remember to always keep holding the filler cord still and only pull the working cords. And remember that you always can sculpt your knots if they're not looking right to you. As you can see, I'm pinching them and forming them with my hands as I'm going forward. Now that I've formed 2 rows of double half hitch knots, I want to form another diagonal line that runs along my second line. So I pick the most outer cord on the right side as my filler. I keep holding it diagonally across all my working cords, and I keep wrapping the other working cords next to it around the same filler cord until I reach to my first cord. Now that you're done with your left wing, it's time to do the same thing with your right wing. You start with your most outer right cord as your filler cord, hold it across all your working cords, and wrap the other cords around it and do it twice for each cord until you reach the middle part. Now that I'm done with all of my half hitch knots, I want to connect the right wing and the left wing together, and making one square knot is the easiest way for me to do that. So I pick the 2 inner cords as a filler and the one right next to it as a working, and make one square knot. After I did so, I want to continue making my triangular shape, so I pick the last cord on my left side to continue making my half hitch knots and wrap the rest of my cords around that one cord so I can make my diamond shape, so to say. I will continue making another line after I'm done with my half line, like what I did on the upper part. And once I'm done with my second line, I will make 2 other lines of half hitch knots on my right wing. Now that you're done with your pattern on the top, you want to bring your actual plant pot and kind of eyeball it and see how big your plant is and how much space does it need. Also, you need to take in account that how big the foliage of your plant is. If you have a pot that is the leaves are draping and it's big, you have to give it more space. The plant in this video, my plant is a small succulent, and obviously it's not heavy and it doesn't need as much support, and also it's not as tall. After I'm done eyeballing how much I need to give to my pot, I make one square knot with the 4 front cords, and I make it a little bit looser so I can examine and see if that was enough, or do I need to make it tighter or looser. Once I'm done with my first square knot, my work will kind of have a front and a back part. So I will have 4 cord in my frontal part that has a square knot. So with 2 cords of the same square knot that I have in the front, and the 2 other cords that I bring from the back, I make another square knot, and I do the same thing with the other 2 cords on the left part of the square knot and the 2 other cords that I'm bringing from the back, so I have 3 square knots. You can continue doing the same thing and making more square knots, but it's not necessary. At this point, I'm going to stop and bring back my pot to see how it fits. So as you can see, it fits well, and I have enough knots to be able to support my pot. At this point, I want to finish my plant hanger by wrapping it. For this part, I will use a colorful yarn. You can use whatever that you have at home that works the best for you. The material doesn't matter. You don't have to use the same thing that you use to make your plant hanger. This is more decorative, so basically you can have fun with it and use all sorts of colorful yarn that you have at home. The last knot that you will learn is a gathering knot. You want to make a U-shape loop and make sure that the tail is facing up and the head of the U is facing the bottom. And as you're holding it with your thumb, start to wrap the cord around all of the cords that you were working with so far. The very important part is to leave the tail out. You don't want to lose the tail. And also you want to stop right when you reached to the head of the U. You don't want to cover that either. So you need the head and the tail. Once I'm done wrapping, I put the end of my cord into the head of the loop, which was out, and as I'm holding it, I go to the tail, to the top, and I pull it. So it kind of pulls the loop. And as you can see, the loop has disappeared inside, and the end I can trim later. So I bring my pot again, and it fits perfectly. And at this point, I'm done. I only need to trim the ends as long as I want to, and then I'm done and I can hang my plant hanger. I hope you've enjoyed making this project with me. I'm going to upload more upcycling and fiber art projects in my channel. Please subscribe if you like this video and give me a thumbs up, and see you next time. Bye.